Want to call to order the February 25th, 2020 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. Please note that we will not have Dr. Holmes or Mr. Shad with us tonight. They had prior engagement. So at this time, I will accept a motion to go into executive session or ask for a motion. Yes, ma'am.
I move to convene the executive session for the purpose of discussing student appeals, student admission requests into the district's adult education program, and a contractual matter regarding construction.
Thank you for that motion by Dr. Caution Parker. Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote at this time. Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. The February 25th, 2020 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. We have just returned from executive session where we took the only vote that we can in executive session, which is to end it. And the motion was made by Ms. Agostini, seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. It was a unanimous vote. It was seconded by Ms. Mackey. And unanimous vote, and we came out of executive session at 5:49, if the record will reflect that. I also want to extend sincere apologies from both Mr. Shad and from Dr. Holmes, who could not be with us here tonight. So please accept their apologies for the other issues that they have going on this evening. At this time, thank you. At this time, we will have the inspirational moment and the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Agostini, if you'll take that away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we close out Black History Month, tonight we will be inspired by 2 student poets from Ridgeview High School, who I discovered while visiting Ridgeview's Black History Month exhibit earlier in the month. It is my pleasure to introduce Junior Rajon Buckner and Junior Shadori Verrett.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Thank you, board members and superintendent, for having us tonight. My poem is named My Identity. My skin is pure, my pretty skin shines. While most might say it doesn't, I see different in my mind. I like all skin, everyone shines, but no one shows love to the melanin skin as I learn about my life within. I have different nationalities to make up my identity. I love everything that there is. One of my nationalities went through so much just to get where we are now. We must show that no matter what, everyone's the same, no matter the color of our skin or how we feel within.
Thank you for inviting me. My poem is Free, Accepting, Equal. Being American is embracing people, accepting others, enjoying culture, free, accepting you, having the right of freedom to speech, say what you feel, say what you think, free, accepting you, freedom of religion, have what God you want, believe what you want, free, accepting you, not judge people because of their difference, not color, not religion, or not their beliefs, free, accepting you. American is being loyal to this country. Help any way you can, always kind.
Now if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We certainly have very talented folks in our district, and we appreciate you sharing your poems with us and being in front of us tonight, especially for Black History Month. So thank you both again for being here tonight. And thank you, Ms. Agostini, for bringing them to us this evening. We will now move on to approval of the agenda. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Mackey.
I move to approve the agenda for the February 25th, 2020 Richland 2 School Board meeting.
All right, the motion to approve tonight's agenda has been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. And the motion passes 4 yes, 1 no. We will now move on to special recognitions. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have Ms. Libby Ruth here with us this evening to provide us with information regarding our special recognitions for the February 25th, 2020 board meeting. Ms. Ruth?
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Chairman Manning, board members, and guests. Tonight, we begin our special recognition portion of the meeting by calling up Patrick Kelly. Mr. Kelly wears several hats in our district. He is, sorry. You want to take over? You can just tell. Wears several hats in our district as coordinator of professional learning, and well as AP US Government and Politics teacher at Blythewood High School. So I'll ask Principal Matt Sherman to join him up front as well. Thought you were going to get that? No. Mr. Kelly has been appointed to a 4-year term on the National Assessment Governing Board by U.S. Secretary of Education. This board oversees the only continuing national representative evaluation of U.S. students' knowledge. He is one of 3 new appointees to the 26-member board. Trips to Washington will not be new to Mr. Kelly, as he has served as a U.S. Department of Education Classroom Teaching Ambassador Fellow in 2015 and 2016, and as a Washington Teaching Ambassador Fellow in 2016 and 2017. During his time in Washington, Mr. Kelly worked on a range of policy topics, including assessment, diversity, teacher leadership, and systems of support for educators. His appointment to this board is a testament to his unwavering efforts to be a voice for teachers on the national level. And a little aside, Patrick is a regular blogger and writes some amazing blog articles from the teacher perspective. And I always get a little sneak peek because Patrick wants me to see them or know that they're going to be posted before they post them nationally. But his articles are always very popular with teachers. They resonate with teachers. You can hear his teacher voice, even though he has expanded his teacher role and to be a leader for teachers. It is very obvious why he received this recognition, and we're so very proud of him. Congratulations, Patrick. Richland 2 is home to 2 2020 schools to watch, and we're going to start with Blythewood Middle School. And I'll call y'all up, or yeah, come on up. First, let me explain that Principal Karis Mazik is under the weather, and she is following our guidelines, which says when you have a fever, you stay home for 24 hours without the use of medicine. So we're very appreciative of her doing that, but she sent a great team to represent her tonight, represent the school. It's Greta Carter, Assistant Principal, Raheem El Amin, Assistant Principal, Robert Rattery, Assistant Principal, Tyler Abernathy, Technology Learning Coach, Christy Brown, Admin Intern, Rachel Corvi, Administrative Assistant, Denise Webster, Curriculum Effectiveness Specialist, current Teacher of the Year, Jessica Atkins, and the 2020-2021 Teacher of the Year, Crystal Munson. Blythewood Middle School has been redesignated as a school to watch for 2020. The school was first recognized 12 years ago for a 3-year period and has been redesignated every 3 years since. 20 schools in the state received this highly sought-after designation this year. To be selected as a schools to watch, schools need to be academically excellent, developmentally responsive, socially equitable, and organized with supportive structure. Congratulations to Blythewood Middle School. pull this back a little bit for you, Shelley. Oh, yeah. Hold tight, you have some paparazzi. Great, congratulations again. Our second school to watch is Muller Road Middle School. So will Principal Sean Bishton come forward, along with Assistant Principals Michael Glover, Latanya Freeman, Kim Oxidine, Allison Wisenet, English Language Arts teacher and past Teacher of the Year, Caitlin Manchester, English Language Arts teacher, Allie McCarty, Resource teacher and current Teacher of the Year, Lacey Von Plinsky, Technology Learning Coach, Diane Gilbert, and they also have members of the School Improvement Council, Ms. Wheeler, who is chair, Ms. White, and Mr. and Mrs. Gorge. Along with Blythewood Middle, Muller Road has been named a school to watch for 2020, only one of 4 new ones in the state. The school's emphasis on strong academics, sensitivity to young adolescents' needs and interests, and commitment to providing all students equal access to high quality education resulted in the well-deserved recognition. Both schools to watch are available for interested educators to visit and learn and see firsthand what makes them a school to watch. They will be showcased as models throughout the state and the nation to promote their approaches to instruction, parent and community involvement, and professional development. Congratulations, Muller Road Middle. Hold on a minute. Mr. Bishop, why don't you come over here? I have an education degree. I can lead people a little bit. Thank you and congratulations. Mr. Bishton, you want to stay up here with your assistant principals? You want to bring your assistant principals back up? And we're going to ask Brandy Ross to come forward as well, because Muller Road Middle received another designation. They are once again an AVID school-wide site of distinction, and Brandy Ross is the AVID teacher for the school. AVID, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, fosters a safe, open culture, high expectations for teachers and students, and collaboration in all classrooms. To earn the status of a school-wide distinction, Muller Road teachers underwent AVID training to learn methodology, strategies, and practices. The school also implemented AVID school-wide strategies on focused note-taking, organization of agenda books and binders, and increasing and encouraging a college-ready culture. The school has offered exposure to PSAT testing for 7th graders. The PTO paid for all 8th graders interested in the PSAT to participate, and the school has provided increased access to higher level courses for its students. And I also want to mention, in a meeting recently, we were talking about AVID district-wide. Principal Bishton demonstrated his exceptional knowledge of AVID when he made recommendations about what kind of training people should participate. And so he is definitely sold on AVID, and it's proven well for your school. So congratulations. Thank you. And that concludes tonight's recognitions. Thank you so much, Board.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
I move to approve the consent agenda for the February 25th, 2020 regular board meeting.
Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second? seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 5 yes, or unanimously. We will now move on to our first public participation, item 7.1. And at this time, I have Condi Saband. Is that correct? Sabande, I apologize. Please come forward to the mic. Please keep in mind that these are videotaped on YouTube. And we ask you not to mention any specific names of staff members or board members. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you. I'm sure you've heard of hola, konnichiwa, or bonjour. These are common words that the children have to learn while they're going through school. When I say something like mulibwanji, jambo, or saubola, it's not as familiar. Those are different ways to greet somebody in an African language, different African languages. We also greet people by saying, how did you sleep last night? Or peace be unto you. I'm here today to invite you again this year to our African Arts Festival that we're having at the Laurie Center. Last year, I came to you as a parent. This year, I come to you as a Richland 2 employee and a parent as well. Our African Arts Festival is interactive, it's fun, it's educational, and we are asking that you all join us. When I spoke about it last year, there was a lot of buzz, there was a lot of excitement, but I didn't see a lot of action. So this year, I'm asking you all to come out March 7th at 6 p.m. to the Laurie Center and become involved in our program. This is our 5th year presenting this program. We have storytelling, we have drumming, we have a food segment that most people love because we take the time to explain what the item is and how it's made, which region of Africa it comes from. And we have individuals that live here in Columbia, South Carolina from different parts of the continent that present or bring a part of their culture to you. For more information, you can find out about the festival at a2z.org. That's ATOZED.org. We have information on tickets there. This program is being put on by a nonprofit organization called A2Z that was founded here in South Carolina. And our vision and our mission is to educate our children both inside and outside of the classroom. We do that here in the community, and we also do it abroad when we go every other year to Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no one else signed up to speak up, so we will now move on to item 8.1, our legislative update. Dr. Miley.
Thank you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. We've been talking about several bills in the Senate and House, and one of them was S419. That's the Education Reform Bill. That was basically set aside this past week because they're taking up the potential and consideration of selling the state-owned public utility, Santee Cooper. That's supposed to be done in 30 days, but we've talked to legislators and others, and we're not sure whether 419 will actually go anywhere this year or not. It may be picked apart and portions of it put back in legislation, but we will keep you posted. The biggest news this past week was Ways and Means did a blitz in the budget process this year. I think it may have been the fastest that Ways and Means had ever done a budget. A lot of it is positive for K through 12. They increased, they provided $213 million for teacher salaries. They took the governor's recommendation of the $3,000 per teacher, which is very good. I mean, that's nice, it's great. Hopefully they'll fund it adequately, but in addition, the only consideration there is it does give a larger percentage to the lower salaried teachers and less of a percentage increase, but it is very positive, and it would bring our starting salaries above $40,000. They included $16 million in the base cost base student cost inflation factor, and they included $10 million for the base student cost, which is where it comes to $11 increase in base student cost. But one thing they did this year, and we are going to follow it closely, and we're going to make sure we adhere to it, but they actually tied that funding, that $11 increase with the base student cost, to the districts adopting an anti-bullying and cell phone use policy, which would mean that if you didn't have that policy, you would not get funding for the base student cost increase. We've discussed it already, and we think our policy that exists, that we have, would fit and be adequate if this continues and is actually turns into law, and we'll make sure that we do adhere to that, hopefully to be able to adhere to that requirement if it does stay in the bill. $10 million for school resource officers, which is positive, about $25 million for buses. All those are all positive. We would like more, but they're all positive. One of the things that we've been beating on the State Department is their Office of School Facilities. They increased funding for the Office of School Facilities, about $250,000 for two additional FTEs. And one last thing is there are a couple of bills that we're closely following in terms of school lunch debt that are being discussed in terms of the ability to keep a balance or actually have any negative balance of any student's school debt, which whether that's not talking about free and reduced, this would be any school, any student, and we're following that very closely because that might be a negative impact on us if in essence there was no accounting for any school lunch debt at all. There would be no method of trying to track that down or not. But I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Board members, questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Motley.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll now move on to item 9, and specifically 9.1, student appeals. If I can please have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Agostini.
first I'd like to start by pulling student number 3. Then I'd like to make the motion for student number 1, deny the appeal. Student number 2, return to home school on strict probation with services. Student number 4, deny the appeal. Student number 5, deny the appeal. And student number 6, deny the appeal.
The motion has been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. We'll wait for the motion to appear to make sure it's correct.
That is correct.
Okay, is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 5 yes, 0 no. Ms. Agostini?
Mr. Chair, for student number 3, I would like to make the motion to deny the appeal.
Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Mackey.
just because there's no other place to do this appropriately with regard to comment, I just wanted to reiterate, probably for the umpteenth time since we've been here dealing with student appeals, this is not a fun job, deciding a student's fate. In an ideal world, you want all kids to stay in school, all kids to value education and to be educated. By that same token, I'm a parent. I've got babies whom I'm responsible for their safety. There are other parents who are responsible for those parents, for those kids' safety, and we advocate for all of our kids and all of our teachers. It is paramount that teachers be safe in school. It is paramount that all of our students deserve a safe environment. There's no unilateral decision we made. These are tough decisions and tough decisions that we make behind closed doors. You all can't see what the details are, but please know that I'm only speaking on my behalf because I can only speak on my behalf, but advocating for student and teacher safety and anyone who walks in our classrooms is paramount. By that same token, with regard to equity, you want to have equity of discipline. When you discipline students, the discipline should match, the crime per se, or the infraction per se. No one student population, should be more penalized and more than others. So equity is important, but my purpose in talking tonight is to tell you these are painstaking decisions that we make, and student and teacher and staff safety is just paramount.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Any other comments? If not, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no. We'll now move on to item 9.2, student admission request into the district's adult education program. If I can please have a motion. Mr. Chair. Ms. Agostini.
Excuse me. I move to approve admission into adult education for students number 1, number 2, and number 3.
The motion has been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 9.3, there's no need for any other items discussed in executive session. So we'll move on to item 10, 10.1, our update on capital improvement. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our public, we have Mr. Will Anderson, who will provide status on the Richland 2 bond projects for the February 25th, 2020 board meeting. As you know, this is a standing item on our second board meeting of each month. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thank you, members of the board. Happy to be here. Just want to thank all of our team that's involved in this. I come and make these presentations, but there's a lot of people involved to make this thing happen every day. And so I just want to thank them publicly first before I move on to our update. As you all recall, you have a more thorough report as part of your board packet. I'm happy to answer any of those questions, but I'll go through briefly some of the work we've done in the past month. Security projects are still wrapping up. Mostly it's just punch list types items. Some of the glass work, we're still waiting on like 3 schools. It's just a specially formatted glass, that ballistic glass that we're hoping to get done. But we've made a timeline to have everything completely done by spring break, if not sooner, which every day a project's getting done. 5 schools will be having some summer lobby / security projects this summer. You see those on the screen. Some are minor. You're probably, Dent Middle School's not a major issue. Some are much more complicated, such as Westwood High School and Moeller Road Middle School, which we've been meeting with those principals and the architects on that. Roof replacements are coming, and CFK North the same way. If we can get it to stop raining for a couple days, it'll really help us out. It's been a very big challenge for everyone, obviously, but it's been a big challenge for some of our projects to get started off on the right foot. So we're hoping for a little bit of dry weather, but everything's still moving along as quickly as possible. Our stadium projects are delayed right now. We're in some contractual negotiations, so we are delayed on that. We're hoping to get that back up and running here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, but we're currently delayed on that and in contract negotiations. Blythewood High School, we should hopefully start here very soon. The bids have came in. We're meeting within the next week or two with the contractor to review those, sign the guaranteed maximum price, and start that work at Blythewood High School. Our other 3 rebuilds, their schematic designs are complete, other than Forest Lake is almost complete. Looking forward to really getting those started in designs over the next, in the fall, with construction on those. Very 3 big projects looking forward to. Continue to keep feedback sessions. All of these schools will have user group sessions with teachers coming up in March to provide a lot more feedback. And I'm also meeting with the Bethel-Hanbury Alumni Association on Sunday to talk with them about their the Bethel-Hanbury Elementary School. The renovations for Northeast and Ridgeview are on their way. We're going to pull out HVAC and roof packages for R&E and HVAC for Ridgeview to go ahead and get that process started before the rest of the other work starts. It's just easier for us to get that started separately as opposed to the rest of the school, and so we can go ahead and get that project started. The Northeast is not as complex as Ridgeview. Ridgeview will be complex, have more information to come with that in the future, but it may require some mobile units to make sure we get that done as quickly as possible. And artificial turfs begin here soon in March. We'll start at Blythewood High School, and you can see the arrows. They'll finish Blythewood, go to Westwood, go to Spring Valley, and then R&E once the stadium's finished. But all this will be done before the August. So we'll have new turf fields for those 3 schools before August. And last but not least, as always, all this information is on our website, up to date. Ms. Roof and her office do a great job of keeping that up to date, and you can find out all of our subcontractors and all of our budget information on the website. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
first of all, thank you for putting those opening dates on. I appreciate that. But the artificial turfs, tell me how this will impact track and field at these schools.
The artificial turfs for Blythewood and Westwood are on the stadiums, which they do not do track and field. They don't do any for many years, they haven't had any events in those fields. That's one reason we're going to artificial turf. Spring Valley is not going to start until May, till after track season. So that's why they're third in line, because they do use their fields for a track. Thank you. Welcome.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Mackey?
I just want to thank you, Ms. Anderson. We asked for updates along the way and transparency with regard to the good, bad, and the ugly, and we appreciate your doing just that. With regard to the HVAC, complexity doesn't, if the complexity results in delays, you'll let us know if there are any problems, I presume?
Correct.
Okay.
When I speak of complexities, it's not as simple as taking a unit out and putting a new unit in. It's
Gotcha.
more engineering and duct work.
Yeah, 'cause there's nothing in the school at all, yeah.
Correct, to get the HVAC,
Gotcha.
the air into the corridors. That's just a little more difficult than a
Gotcha.
roof unit at R&E where you just replace a roof unit.
Gotcha. Okay, thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
so much for your reports. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other board members? Dr. Miley, I do have one question for you. So when we passed the referendum, I think we made a commitment to try to maintain a specific debt service level.
Correct.
So can you kind of update me on, are we under that cap, where we are in regards to that?
When we made the bond presentations, our analysis result, we told the public, and we told you that we did not anticipate more than a 10 mil increase in our debt service millage rate throughout the bond referendum build out. To date, we've issued $85 million worth of bonds, and it has not impacted the millage rate at all. And right now, based on the growth of the district, the actual debt service millage rate is below where it was when we had the referendum. We still, in fact, we're meeting with the auditor tomorrow. Mike Gallagher with Compass Municipal is here tonight. We're meeting with the auditor tomorrow to go over our plan, both with our special obligation bond that you authorized last time, and then the refunding this hopefully for this board meeting, and our plans for the next 12 to 24 months. So we feel very confident that that 10 mil increase estimate obviously it's already held because we haven't had any increase, and we believe that 10 mil increase will hold throughout the bond referendum build out.
Great. And I certainly understand that's based off the market and lots of other things, but appreciate that update and the fact that we are able to maintain that to date. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board members? Thank y'all very much. We will now move on to the next agenda item, 10.2, policy proposal JJF, student activity funds. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our community, we have two policies that Dr. Mala will be presenting to you all. For first reading, policy JJF is student activity funds, and policy JLA will be our student insurance coverage. Mr. Chair, with point of privilege, if when Dr. Malley is finished, we'll have our chief for teaching and learning, Ms. Nancy Gregg, will then also come and share a proposal for 10.4 IMB, teaching about controversial sensitive issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our student activity funds are those funds at each of the school sites that they use for yearbooks, for field trips, things like that. We monitor them, but we don't regulate them. They're outside the procurement code, but this policy addresses those funds. I'll be glad to answer the questions. With the edits we're suggesting, clean it up a little bit, and we refer to the the financial manual, which guides the accounting and the record keeping, and so that's why you see some of the language struck that addresses the record keeping, et cetera.
All right, thank you. Board members, questions or comments? Ms. Agostini?
My question was in regard to the financial manual. Is that something that the district, is
Yes,
it the district
that's-
financial manual?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then secondly, is that one word or two words? Is there supposed to be a space in there?
There's supposed to be a space
Okay,
there.
thank you.
All right, Dr. Elkins Johnson, sorry.
Yes, Dr. Miley, just a few questions. Will the category of parking fees, IDs, fall up under this category? And then also, can you explain to us how this money is used? Because if it's up to each individual principal or school, is there any guideline that they have that they must follow to use the money?
I believe parking fees would be included in pupil activity fees, yes. And what they do, and it's quite cumbersome, and that's why we try to stay out of it, is they collect the fees and they'll have, maybe one school might have 30 different categories of collections. They'll have one for field trip A, and they'll have one for the band equipment or the band trip. They'll have another account for a trip to New York, and then they'll have another account for the yearbook. There's probably 30 or 50 different ways. So they're the ones that are on account, they're accountable for those funds because they collect those funds. In fact, when I thought it would be good use for the district to take some of those funds. But I was immediately informed that, no, those parents that gave that money for the band trip expect the band trip funds to be used for the band trip. So that's how those are done.
And I guess my follow-up question would be, how are we being accountable for the funds? And is there a way to know how much funds are coming in each school year?
We keep track, yes, ma'am.
And how the monies are being used?
Well, we try, they are required, and we do keep account. We don't govern them. My office does not govern those expenditures. If they want to spend it on a band trip and they've collected the money for a band trip, that's what they'll do. We don't govern that expenditure. They have to, in fact, they're not even subject to the procurement code.
Right, so how would we know how the money is being used? Is there a guideline that principals create, or is that something that Dr. Davis
Well,
has
we
come
have
up with?
guidelines, but again, that's up to the individual school. They've collected the money from their parents, and they want to spend it the way they want to spend it, and that's how we let them spend it.
Okay, I'll like to, I'll get with Dr. Davis because I'll love to see some type of guideline of how the money is being spent and how much is actually coming in, because that can give input for parents or students to give suggestions on how they would like the money to be spent, since they are the ones that's really donating the money back to the school.
Well,
Just as a point of clarification, so it's not just a general donation for student activities fund. The funds are already earmarked for a specific event or activity or whatever that fund is for. And so if it is for, as Dr. Molly suggested, say the student activities fund for JROTC, then JROTC leader along with the principal would designate how they will spend those funds. So it may be for, they may decide to take a field trip, and so part of those funds go to field trips, but the principal would not take the JROTC funds and spend that fund on basketball uniforms and vice versa. So how they're spent is already designated based on the category of where the money is going. We look at those pupil activities funds on an annual basis to ensure that those pupil activities funds are being spent. And so some of the pupil activity funds, for example, can be specialized for magnet programs, so for specific magnet programs. So those funds would not cross into another program. Those funds will be specifically for that program, for that trip, or for that activity that particular student activity that fund was designated for. The pupil activities funds, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Molly, can be carried over because it's not general fund money. And so the principal sits down with those individuals who are responsible for those activity funds, and then they develop an idea or plan on how that money is going to be spent that year.
And now we do monitor it. That is, for instance, if there was $5,000 in a field trip and they tried to spend $6,000, we would not let that happen because it does flow through our office. But we would assure that there's $5,000. It's for this field trip for this group. That's what the money was collected for, and we'd make sure that would get paid. But we wouldn't let them spend $6,000.
Right, and I understand that, so thank you for that. I do understand that, but I'm talking about parking fees and IDs. That's not designated for anything. So how is that money being used, and how much, do we have a record of how much comes in each year from each school, and then how is the money being?
We would have a record of how much was being, that is being collected. So the parking, for example, with IDs, the ID funds will be used to purchase new IDs. Students lose IDs, and so for the purchasing of the ID equipment, the purchasing of the lanyards, the purchasing of the actual printing of the IDs. So it regenerates itself. There probably in a high school, for example, there probably is going to be some excess in that ID account, but that ID account is specifically for that ID account. The same thing there is some discretion when it comes to things like parking and how you would utilize the parking from various schools, but it gives the schools an opportunity to have flexibility to do and provide things for their schools where they may be more subject to restrictions when using general fund money or money that is specially allocated for specific purposes, because most of the money that they're receiving is specifically allocated, so it gives them the flexibility to use that money for different programs, et cetera, within that school. So we have I believe we have always had a good system. We have not, to my knowledge, ever had some sort of accounting issue necessarily about something like that. Our principals do a really good job of making sure that money is spent appropriately, but restricting or limiting what they can use the student activities funds would be something that I think would be more of a challenge than making sure that they're spending the funds appropriately and it's going back to students.
Okay, my question still is not being answered. I understand that, and I know that principals have the discretion. Again, my question is there some type of record that shows and indicate how the money is being used, how they're spending? Are they spending to help with student lunch fees? Are they using the money if there's a special event going on in the school? Are they using the money for a motivational speaker? Do we have any guidelines like that? Or
we don't have guidelines. No, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I'm sorry.
We don't have guidelines, but of course there's a record because it's a financial record. So the record exists. If X amount of dollars come in to this pot, and then X amount of dollar goes out, that money goes somewhere. And there is, of course, accountability and record keeping for where that money goes. So absolutely, there's a record of it. But there's no guideline that says that you can only spend X amount of dollars from parking on this. there's no guideline that exists like that. And I would say that would be more cumbersome and restrictive than just making sure that we're having good fiscal accountability from the high schools, middle schools, and the elementaries. And typically your high schools and your middle schools have more student activity funds than our elementary schools, which you probably know as an elementary principal.
Okay, other questions or comments from board members as it relates to policy JJF? All right, Dr. Miley, policy JLA.
Thank you. This is for student insurance coverage. We're recommending some changes to this. When I got here, the district had insurance for athletics that athletes that they could purchase. We had a low-cost insurance program for individual students that the parents could purchase. We did our best, and we decided we went for full coverage at no cost to all parents. We went with an insurance program that the district paid for everybody. We had some opportunities. We had a lot of competitive bids and put it out on an RFP, and we selected several firms, and that we were actually on our second RFP of this process, where we provide free insurance coverage to all students and all parents. The current language in the policy that we're suggesting changing required us to have specifically a low-cost insurance program for athletes and other activities. We're suggesting we currently, for instance, we have a benefit program which provides 80% of out-of-pocket costs to any parent for any medical costs. So we're suggesting we amend this language to support the ability for the district, depending on the market may change in 2 to 5 years, in which another type of insurance program might be more affordable. We may have a budget crunch in which we might have to go back out for bid, but we're suggesting that this language directs us to have some kind of insurance benefit program for all students, and right now we're able to do that at no cost to the students and families.
Board members' comments, Ms. Agostini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that means there'll no longer be an athletic fee for our students?
We still have the athletic fee. I believe we still have the participation fee, yes. Yes, that was originally, I was told, to provide some offset of the insurance costs. And I don't think at one time we were collecting that to help us pay for the insurance premium. We don't do that anymore. I believe the schools are keeping those funds for whatever they need.
So to clarify, we initiated the athletic fee to help pay for insurance. We no longer need that to help pay for insurance because we're insured, but we're keeping it to help pay for other costs.
Correct.
Okay. And then my second question is, or just comment, looking at the district offers it administers directly or indirectly through a third-party administration. Should that be third-party administrator?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for not catching that. Again, we don't want to be in the insurance business. We want to go through an third-party insurance provider, benefit provider. So that's why we wanted the language of a third party as opposed to us having an insurance company inside the district.
Ms. Agostini, so you would like to make the motion to change from the word administration to administrator?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion to change the word administration to administrator.
Yeah, I apologize. I know it's a little red tape-ish, but we got to follow the process. Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Eccles Johnson. Will you put your mic on for me in a second?
Yes. Second.
Seconded by Dr. Elkins Johnson. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll have the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Other questions or comments?
Were you done? I'm done. Yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Ms. Mackey, okay.
Thank you to the administration and the folks who went into this decision. I know that as a parent as well, low cost is a relative term depending on someone's situation. So I'm just thankful that the district is working to has worked to find an opportunity that allows all students to be covered and have something, as critical as insurance. So I appreciate this policy.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Other questions or comments? All right. Policy 10.4, IMB.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Policy IMB, teaching about controversial sensitive issues, is one of the policies we presented at an earlier school board meeting. It was suggested that we take this policy to FAC for feedback, which we did on November 13th. We used that feedback to make revisions which were shared with FAC on January the 15th. The revisions are reflected in the policy before you. There were 3 main revisions from teachers. Number 1, clarifying or defining a controversial sensitive issue, which you will see in paragraph 2 where it's highlighted. The second one is to remove unclear or outdated language such as true scholar, emotional criticism that is reflected with more updated language in paragraph number 3. And then finally, the third one is to add his or her designee to be consistent with other policies that we have previously revised, and that's in paragraphs 4 and 5. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. The board members, questions or comments?
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. Next, we have item 11.1, approval of policy revision GBAA. That is for action. If I can please have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move to approve the policy revision to GBAA, sex, gender discrimination, and harassment.
Motion has been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have new business action requested, approval of our bond refunding resolution. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our public, we have Dr. Malley here to share some information regarding the refinancing or refunding of a bond and asking for a motion for a resolution. Dr. Malley.
Thank you. I believe about a week or so ago, 10 days ago, we included in a board brief an explanation of the purpose of this. I put in that board brief, in essence, in my language, it's kind of like refinancing your house. When interest rates go down, you can save money by refinancing your house. Basically, that's what we're doing. We can't refinance all bonds because they're not all callable at one time, but these 3 bonds, and I've asked Franny Heiser from the Burr Law Firm, who's our bond counsel, and Mike Gallagher from Compass Financial Advisors to provide us to answer any questions you have. I think Mike wanted to give you a brief overview of why this is beneficial to not only the district, but the taxpayers in the district. So Mike, if you would.
Dr. Davis, Mr. Manning, board's pleasure to be here with you tonight. You have 3 bond issues, Series 2009C, 2010C, and 2010E, which are outstanding and have an interest rate average on those of 3.58%. We're projecting, based on the current market rates, that you would be able to drop that down to 1.53. So what's that really translate to you? Total payments on those bonds as it is today, if you did nothing, would be $61,912,996. Based on these interest rate projections, and we're trying to be as conservative as possible there, your payments would drop down to $58,291,750. That would be a savings of $3,621,000. So this is a transaction. We've structured it such that these 3 issues could be done at one time to save you on cost of issuance, and it would be done at the time where the 2010E Build America bonds would be callable, and that would be most advantageous to you at that time. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, board members. Questions or comments? I wish all of our decisions were this easy. So I have the, I'm sorry, I lost myself. Did I get the first and second on that? The motion, I did not, right? No, I didn't. When I only have 5, like it's harder on me than when I have 7 somehow. Can I have a motion, please, on the bond refunding resolution?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey?
I move that the board approve the resolution for the refunding of callable outstanding bonds at this time.
A motion's been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have item 13. Thank you, Dr. Miley. Thank you very much. Next, we have item 13, new business, no action requested. A report on second quarter discipline. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of our board, and to our community, we have Mr. Cleveland Smith who will come and present for us the second quarter discipline report. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, and Dr. Davis. This evening, I'm going to share with you the discipline report for the second quarter. A lot of the information in the discipline report I've already submitted to you where you have the report, but I want to share some highlights of this with you. Also this evening, I have 2 behavior intervention specialists that are going to share a part of the presentation too, but I will go ahead and begin with my part. This first slide that I have is up there for the 4-year data. We have been talking about data for quite some time. We've been asked to show like a 4-year trend, and for the second quarter from the 16-17 all the way to the 19-20 year, you see the number of students in the district that have received the number of students with in-school suspensions, as well as the number of students with out-of-school suspensions and the students that were expelled during each of those quarters. Over the last few years, as you can see, well, one part I want to highlight is this. In 16-17, that's when we really started working with our discipline matrix. In 18-19, we started that full year working with the new code of conduct that was approved by the state regs, in addition to what we use with our discipline matrix. And we can see with the number of students that received in-school suspensions, that 18-19 to 19-20, the numbers did go up for in-school suspensions, but we also can see across the district for out-of-school suspension with people working with that discipline matrix and seeing what should be, when a student has a suspendable offense, if it should be in school, it should be out of school. So we see those numbers down, and so far this year, our numbers of expulsions are at the number that they are at 9. One other piece I want to talk about with this too is we met in January to start out this quarter, this second half of the year, I should say, and we met with middle and high school administrators as well as the directors of school counseling. And I met with them along with Dr. Morgan, and Dr. Davis came and spoke with us too. But we wanted to talk to them in regards to suspensions and interventions, what we can do. When students are expelled, they have to come back in, or recommended for expulsion, I should say. They come back in and have a reentry conference when they go back on probation. But also we want to have the conversation with those students that receive their first suspension, the second suspension. Anytime a student is suspended, we want to go ahead and make sure that at the school level, there were conversations going on with those students when they return to, one, we could use some interventions as our restorative practices, as well as other, where they could have contact with the school counselor to see what's going on with them, to see what we need to put in place for intervention. So we did have that conversation, and over the summer, we're going to do training with administrators again in regards to discipline matrix, suspension, and interventions, as well as our bullying protocol. But at this time, I want to turn it over to our behavior intervention specialist.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
are
Dr.
we waiting
Johnson.
until everything is over, or if we have questions now, can we ask on this slide? Because I have a few questions on this slide.
Oh, can we just wait till it's over so we get the
Yes,
full
I just want-
picture and
okay,
come back?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Davis, Mr. Manning, and members of the board.
Good evening.
So we wanted to bring you, on the first graph is a 4-year trend of elementary schools, level 1, level 2, and level 3 infractions. We want to point out some of the good things that were going on at each level and areas of growth. So for elementary, we have, in our behavior support meetings that schools have been having, there have been more conversation about data collection and database problem solving at the school level. So schools have been making them be more active at bringing in the data, looking for trends within the school, and kind of targeting areas to look at and improve upon. Also, common language at the schools for Tier 1 expectations. There's been more discussions about that and putting those in place. New to 2 and veteran teacher classroom management series has been very positive for teachers that have attended. A lot of the new to 2 teachers have said that they've been very appreciative because there are certain skills and trainings that they don't get in their teacher preparation programs, and that they've been very beneficial. Areas of growth for elementary school, support for general education teachers and data collection and Tier 1 interventions is the area that we need to continue to grow in. Ongoing Bright Bites professional learning, where interventions are stored for a system of supports. And also just a restorative mindset with having those practices in the framework and being preventative, being able to problem solve with students instead of going straight to a reactive approach. At the middle school level, once again, you see the 4-year trend for level 1, level 2, and level 3 infractions. There has been ongoing multi-tier social supports and behavior support meetings where database problem solving has been occurring. Once again, teachers are improving in the area of classroom management for those who have attended the new to 2 and the veteran classroom teacher sessions. And also quarterly ongoing database conversations with school leadership teams and principal meetings, really sitting down and looking at middle school as a whole and seeing where, things need to be, where those areas of growth are. As far as the areas of growth, administrators trained and utilizing restorative practices as an area. Faculty and staff trained in trauma-informed practices. At the middle school level, we have this and just more of an understanding of the social-emotional issues and the discipline that occurs because of trauma. And also tiered interventions for students at the middle school level is still an area that schools are continuing to work on.
Good evening, Dr. Davis, Mr. Manning Board. If you look at the 4-year trend for high school there, this feeds into one of the good things where our level 1 classroom management infractions, which I would classify as disrespect, disrupting class, inappropriate behavior, and refusal to obey defiant, are trending down. And if you look at, it does look like a high number of level 1 offenses. But if you pick that apart, out of those 6,200 offenses this year, second quarter, 67% of those are IDs and tardies. So if you take that out, really we're doing a pretty good job with our level 1 offenses. Our teachers are doing a great job managing those behaviors. And really when you look at it, most of our students are doing the right thing when you pick it apart. Another good thing is Emily Manigo and I, Dr. Suber, Dr. Manigo, and our team are working together because academics and behavior are interwoven. When we're looking at putting in MTSS at the high school level, we've been collaborating to help those high schools implement that, rolling that out together So there's much more crossover, so it doesn't seem like it's just two things we're doing at the same time. We're melding that process together, so we're doing a great job there. We're helping those high schools connect the dots of what they're already doing within the components of MTSS to help drive that intervention for students. An area for growth for us at the high school level is to increase awareness of the Tier 1 intervention. We have Richland 2 6 R's for classroom management. And those who are not familiar, we emphasize building relationships, routines, expectation, and we're teaching those. Resilience, which has to do with trauma-informed classroom management. Relevance, which has to do with cultural relevance and culturally relevant classroom management. Response, ways to de-escalate behavior and positive behavior responses. And then again, restorative practices, which feeds into the restorative mindset. We're really trying to change that mindset at the high school level from primarily content-driven to teaching the whole child. And working with the students with their behavior instead of leading with punitive consequences. We're trying to change that mindset at the high school. But again, most of our teachers are doing a great job, and most of our students are doing a great job as well. Thank you.
This brings us to the questions part.
All right, board members, questions or comments? Dr. Elkins Johnson.
If you can just go back to the first slide for me, please. When we're looking at quarter 2 for 2018 and 2019, as well as for 2019-2020, is that for 2019-2020, is that from August up until this point?
No, that is for the second quarter, which is in October till the end of the semester in January. So October, I don't have the exact date, something like the 23rd till January, somewhere around the 19th for this year.
For this year. Because I'm wondering, and thank you for that, because I was wondering why are we only doing just a short amount of time instead of for the entire school year?
The last time I brought to you the first quarter, and so this time I was just bringing you the second quarter. I didn't bring you the semester, I would just bring you the quarters, because that's what I did the first time. I was just being consistent with that. If the pleasure of the board to go ahead and do first through third quarter or first through first semester, first quarter, second quarter, we can go ahead and do that too.
I think it would be nice because when we're showing this, and for the people who are sitting out here, and just for us as a reminder, because that quarter was so long ago, I don't know what the numbers are, if we can put quarter 1 beside quarter 2 to give us a real picture of what's going on so we can see the decrease if we're really having that, which I truly believe that we are, because we're saving more students. So it'd be nice to be able to see that.
Okay.
Because we don't have anything to compare it to if we just having just quarter 2 up there.
Okay.
Other board members, is there any opposition to that data being given to us? Okay, so yeah, please provide that.
Okay,
those details. Other questions or comments? Ms. Sagstini.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Smith for that historical data. Thank you for going back so we can compare time frame from year to year. And then also just wanted to make a comment that hopefully we'll see those level 1 infractions go down significantly when Caroline Agostini graduates this spring. Thank you.
Ms. Mackey.
Just want to thank you all for your group effort, for the presentation, and being consistent with the data that you provide us. And I appreciate your extrapolating out what tier 1 type infractions are, your IDs, your tardies, and things of that. Student safety is always important. Teacher safety is always important. No one should feel that they're in harm's way just because they showed up for school that day. However, I appreciate you extrapolating and giving examples of what the level 1, 2, and 3 are infractions are for, so that everyone won't think that every figure or every number represented on the board is something to do with a person's safety. So I appreciate the report. Thank you all. The team of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Thank you all very much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have Item 13.2, report on the 4K program. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for just a brief point of privilege, something also to commend the board on. If you could remember back from that first slide that Mr. Cleveland Smith shared, there were 13 expulsions from school during that quarter. I think at this time, first, second quarter this year, we're trending around 9 after the board approved the implementation of the pathways to promotion, where we are working with students who may have been recommended for expulsion and have that expulsion upheld. We do have a program in place that allows that students to stay on their pathway to promotion by enrolling, and our staff has reached out diligently to include those students so that we're not leaving any student behind, even when sometimes mistakes are made and they have to be removed from the educational setting. And so I do commend you all for allowing us to have that program in place, and I think it is definitely working in keeping those expulsion numbers down. That being said, we'll turn our attention to the early years of our educational setting. And we have Ms. Quinn Evans here with us this evening to share information regarding the Center for Child Development, and she's going to give us a report on the district's 4K program. Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, and executive staff. I was looking back to the last time I presented to you all, and it's been about 4 years. Yep. So I have lots to share with you this evening. Imagine that, 4 years. Yeah. And so if you will indulge me, I'm going to refer to my notes because there's lots that I want to share with you. But as a quick update, the 4K program in the district is federally funded. It allows us to provide a tuition-free, full-day 4K program for qualifying children. And right now, we are in the thick of the application process for the 2021 school year. If any of you have been here at any time in the last couple of weeks, we have been hosting some informational sessions in the evenings. When I left work today, I checked to see how many applicants we have for next year. We had 610, and our application window will stay open for another month and close on March 26th. So we have already hosted 2 informational sessions in the evenings. We've had approximately 250 to 300. We host another one this Thursday evening, and we will have 3 more in March. So we will probably look at about 900 to 1,000 applicants before it's all finished. As some of you may remember, that was just getting started. As some of you may remember, we were originally located on the campus of Killian Elementary. We moved in 2017, and we are now located, the administrative offices, on the campus of Windsor Elementary. For those of you who have been around in the district for a long time, you will remember the portable that housed human resources. Yep. That is now our home. That's what 5 of us call home now. As you see, we have a current enrollment of 605 students, and we are in 32 classrooms. We are in all of the district's elementary schools with the exception of Lake Carolina Upper. So I spend the majority of my day in the car getting to visit all of these places. In the report, you will see that I've broken down for you the number of classrooms that are each school. And this past year, what we have done is added a classroom to Catawba Trail. So slowly but surely, we are continuing to grow. To be able to be a part of the 4K program, you must initially meet one of the following criteria. This information is gained from the online application or InfoSnap that families complete, also a parent questionnaire, and then a student screener. We use all of that information combined to rank order highest need by schools. Those children with highest need receive those spots first, and then the remaining applicants make up the waiting list. So as soon as a spot comes available, we go to that waiting list and immediately fill it. In fact, this week we had 5 open spots, and we were able to fill those with 5 applicants who applied during last year's window. We had a big year last year. We adopted some new curricula. The first 2 there are our literacy and our math curricula. In 2017, in order to support the Read to Succeed legislation, the Office of Early Learning developed a list of approved curricula for preschool classrooms. We convened a group of stakeholders to review the list and make an informed decision for adopting the curriculum that best meets the needs of our students. Last school year, we began implementing McGraw-Hill's World of Wonders, which is an early childhood literacy program, and it aligns with Open Court, which is our K-2 program. Its focus is on building those pre-reading skills for children to be successful in kindergarten. The teaching staff participated in summer professional learning with trainers prior to its implementation, and this year they received in-classroom coaching from one of the trainers. We're seeing lots of success with the curriculum. We just finished up our mid-year assessments, which I'll talk about in just a moment, and we're excited about the achievement of our students. In addition to our literacy curriculum, we began implementing Eureka Math. As well, we've seen growth in our children's number sense as well as their spatial understanding. But at the Center for Child Development, we believe in supporting the whole child. And therefore, we know that research shows it is very important for children to have the social and emotional well-being that's going to allow them to acquire those academic skills as they transition on into kindergarten and so on. So, we have adopted conscious discipline. We've actually been implementing that the longest since our inception. It's an approach that focuses on connection and relationships and building self-regulation. Our teaching staff have participated in many face-to-face trainings as well as ongoing online trainings to continue to build this capacity. Likewise, we provide children with daily opportunities for purposeful play. Therefore, they need to play. So that they can engage more fully with the content that has been taught. Our assessments are PALS and MyIGDs, and I'm pleased to say that our data shows that what we're doing is working. We administer these two assessments 3 times a year. PALS is a literacy assessment approved by the State Department, and it focuses on readiness. At the end of last year, 80% of our students met or exceeded expectations. We're seeing similar results this year just after having completed our mid-year assessment. In addition to supporting our students' literacy development, we are well aware of the goal set forth by Dr. Davis to ensure that our students are on grade level in math as well as reading. Therefore, we have begun to implement MyIGDs, and to measure how we're doing with this, we've chosen to administer this 3 times a year. It's an early numeracy assessment, which helps identify areas of weakness, and it also allows us to monitor children's progress. Last year, 50% of our students demonstrated readiness in the skills assessed, and there was a significant decrease in the students who were needing Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. Teachers, yesterday, we were together for our monthly meeting, and they ran a data protocol on their mid-year math assessments and have already begun to create action plans for the upcoming months of instruction. In the future, we're going to continue to focus on kindergarten readiness. We're going to continue to have ongoing dialogue with teachers. We're also beginning to collaborate more closely with our community child care centers and preschools. Instructional Support Services has already hosted a couple of sessions with them. We are going to be hosting one in April where we're going to focus specifically on building literacy and math skills in an appropriate way. So we know these children are going to transition into our schools very soon. And we are excited about the future to come and continued growth. Are there any questions that I could answer at this time?
Board members, questions or comments? Dr. Elkins-Johnson.
Not a question, just want to say thank you for the hard work that you guys are doing with the 4K program, and very excited to see that you have the conscious discipline in place. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Agostini.
Ms. Evans, I do remember the last time you came and presented because that's when I was considering running for school board. And I remember sitting out there and having a revelation after you had given your presentation when you were asked, what do we do for the 3-year-olds? Because it sounded like the 3-year-olds weren't prepared to be coming to our K-4 program. And my revelation was the responsibility that's put upon public school when I thought, we are responsible for every social issue in public school from the age of 3 to 21 for most students. So you brought that revelation to me. I appreciate your presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey.
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. The one thing that resonated with me was I appreciate the assessments, and I appreciate your explaining that they're not just to show that all of these students are ready and look at our great results, but you added the Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction for those students who are needing a little bit more and are not quite where you like them to be, that you have opportunities for them to help them grow, and I appreciate that very much. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so
and your
much.
team of people with whom you work.
Dr. Caution Parker.
Two of my colleagues have already said what I would like to say, but I just want to say thank you so much and a job well done to all of you. Doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to close this evening, Dr. Davis has shared this with his staff many times, but the traditional greeting pass between the Maasai warriors is how are the children? And I'm delighted to say that the children with the Center for Child Development, they are well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Evans, and your staff for being here tonight, too. Y'all waited through to the end. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have the draft agenda items for March 10th. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our public, we have draft agenda items for the March 10th, 2020 board meeting. That board meeting is scheduled to be conducted at a regular scheduled board items. The call to order and executive session beginning at 5:30, public session beginning at 6:30. In executive session items, we have admissions to the district's adult education program, student appeals. We also have, and we will then convene to public session at 6:30, where we have our inspirational moment, ask for the approval of the current agenda. We'll have special recognitions, ask for the approval of our consent agenda. Our school focus for that evening will be E.L. Wright, where public participation and our legislative update will follow. Voting items in executive session, which will be the request for the district's adult education program as well as student appeals. We'll have under old business action requested the approval of the policies that were presented tonight. If you remember, those policies are JJF, student activity funds, JLA, student insurance coverage, and IMD, teaching about controversial/sensitive topics. We'll have new business, no action requested, where we'll share the immediate urgency priorities. If you recall a couple board meetings ago, I did the high priorities. Urgencies, we'll do it, intermediate ones. We'll ask for the approval, agenda items for the next board meeting, which will be that March 31st. Public participation 2, Board of Superintendent comments to follow. Should there be a second executive session, we will convene into that and then vote on executive session items in executive session number 2 should we need to, and then adjournment.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments? All right, we'll move on to item 15.1, which is approval of the agenda items for the March 10th, 2020 meeting. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move to approve the agenda items for the March 10th, 2020 regular business meeting of the Richland 2 School Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no. Next item on our agenda is public participation number 2. I have no one signed up at this time, so we will move on to item 17.1, our board and superintendent comments. I will start with Dr. Elkins Johnson.
Just like to say thank you to all the folks who presented tonight. Well done. And I also want to recognize Mr. Derek Pugh, who is the Deputy Director of South Carolina Youth Challenge. So thank you for being with us this evening. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Dr. Caution Parker.
The inspiration moment this evening was just outstanding. It was very, very good. And I'd like to congratulate all of our award honorees this evening. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Helen Grant for the outstanding program last night. It was just absolutely wonderful. I deeply appreciate it very much. And I like that the focus is on the honorees and they were just outstanding. And we had 3 that work in our district, and it's Miss Linda Goodwin, who's an assistant for Nancy Gregory over there with teaching and learning. We have Kathy Carroll, who's a librarian in Richland School District 2, and Mr. Warren Wise, science teacher at Kelly Mill Elementary. But again, this is just, I think, the third year for the program. It was just very, very grand. Thank you so much to you and your team. I don't just, you and your whole team. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caution Parker. Ms. Agostini?
I just wanted to thank Rajon Buckner and Shadori Verrett again for providing the inspirational moment, and for Ms. Hansford over at Ridgeview High School for coordinating it. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you. Ms. Mackey?
A couple of things with regard to the speakers from Ridgeview who spoke tonight. One of the things they talked about was the skin I'm in. And I just want to appreciate our babies and our staff and everyone who helps us for blessing our students and for blessing the culture of education, for the students in the skin they are in, and for your being exactly who you are in the skin and the mindset that you are in. And also free will accepting. How about that? Free will accepting. The program last night that I couldn't attend, I know there was a list of honorees, and there was a whole entire program that was dedicated to that. But I know that it was to talk about the significant contributions to Black culture, but I wanted to take the time, and I guess they say great minds think alike, Dr. Caution Parker, to recognize Dr. Helen Grant. And not just for the program, but for all that you do, the integration of what she does to make sure that there is inclusion in every area of our district. There's no perfect place or sweet spot because it's a destination, but making sure that all students are included, regardless of where they are, socioeconomic status, regardless of who's working with them at home, but making sure that we have an atmosphere of inclusion and diversity and equity in our district. And so I just want to acknowledge you as well. So thank you for all that you do, and bless y'all for being here. Those who got to be and those who choose to be. Bless you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Dr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, to our community, congratulations to the 7 Black History Month honorees recognized this week by the Richland School District 2's Office of Diversity and Multicultural Inclusion. The honorees, which include community members, Richland 2 graduates, and employees, were selected for their unique and significant contributions to Black history and culture. In about 1 month, Richland 2 will host the inaugural Premier 100 Conference. The professional development conference for all educators supports the district's high urgency initiative to recruit and retain 100 minority male teachers in the next 4 years. The Premier 100 Conference takes place on Saturday, March 28th here at R2I2 Conference Center. Register on the district's website when you get an opportunity. I hope that members of the Richland 2 family will join me this Saturday, February the 29th at 10 a.m. for the walk with the superintendent. This event is in honor of American Heart Month. After the walk, Sodexo, the district's food service partner, will provide healthy cooking demonstrations in the R2I2 Cafe. The walk will take place along the new pathways to fitness here at R2I2, and you may have seen those little QR codes around the facility for the pathways to fitness. As we wrap up another successful celebration of Black History Month in Richland 2, I want to take a moment to highlight a pioneer South Carolina educator and civil rights activist by the name of Satima Clark, known as the mother of the movement, was born in Charleston in 1898. For more than 30 years, she taught throughout South Carolina, including 18 years in Columbia and 9 years in Charleston. In the 1950s, Ms. Clark and the NAACP advocated for the integration of public schools. Ms. Clark was asked to keep her membership in the NAACP a secret, but she refused. As a result, the school board fired her, and Ms. Clark began devoting all of her time to activism. Ms. Clark conducted workshops at a grassroots education center in Tennessee dedicated to social justice. Her idea for citizens' education became the cornerstone of the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks participated in one of Ms. Clark's workshops just months before she helped launch the Montgomery bus boycott. In 1975, Ms. Clark was elected to the Charleston School Board. The following year, the governor of South Carolina reinstated her teacher's pension after declaring that she had been unjustly terminated in 1956. She was given a Living Legacy Award by President Jimmy Carter in 1979. Satima Clark continued to serve as an advocate and a leader until her death in 1987. A true education advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I also want to thank Dr. Grant for the incredible program last night and your staff. It was a great opportunity. I appreciated Dr. Davis's comments. When we look at this board and the support that the board as a whole provides to administration to recognize and do the work that they do in the area of equity and parity, not just in our district, but in our community and beyond, as Dr. Davis reminded us last night, that is not something that's seen everywhere. Not every district is putting forth the effort into these areas at the level where Richland 2 is. And I think we all have a tremendous amount of pride to see that it's not just in words, but in action, that we have programs such as the Black History Month program last night, and the third year that we've been able to do that we have an equity officer and all the other many things that we're doing in this space to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So thank you to all administration for the work that you do in this area, and thank you to my fellow board members for providing the support that we do for administration and our staff to make this difference in so many students' lives, and it'll be something that lasts well beyond any of us and the change that we're working towards. I'd also like to take this time, I want to read a letter or read some comments here. I feel compelled to address a reported off-the-record comment that was attributed to a Richland 2 board member. This comment appeared in a newspaper article about the board's decision to change dates for 2 upcoming meetings. The off-the-record comment alluded to whether or not Dr. Davis was being compensated for speaking at the upcoming meeting of the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools. It is extremely disappointing that anyone would make this statement, considering Dr. Davis very clearly addressed that issue at our last meeting. He fully answered questions about who pays for the trip and explicitly stated that he was not being compensated for speaking at the event. He went on to explain that whenever he's compensated to speak at an event, he always takes vacation days. And this isn't in my letter, but I can assure you that he and I have regular conversations as the board chair and he is superintendent. In any capacity I've been in as an officer, he clearly states that he does not want to violate ethics and takes personal time off for those days when he is involved in any opportunity that may be considered to be an ethics violation. As I stated at our last meeting, Dr. Davis discussed the recommended changes with me prior to bringing the matter to the entire board. I fully support Dr. Davis attending the spring convening of the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools. He is representing our school district on a national network that does important work to improve outcomes for all students, including students right here in Richland School District 2. I would ask my fellow board members to please think carefully when they consider making off-the-record comments. In those cases where they do make off-the-record comments, our constituents have no choice but to connect those statements to the entire board. This action shows a lack of respect for all of the other fellow board members of trustees for Richland 2. If you have comments, I feel that, and you feel strongly enough to make them, you should connect your name to those comments, to the media and to the public. With that, I will take a recommendation to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Agostini. Is there any discussion? If not, if we can all please raise your right hand high. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.